What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast, a podcast dedicated to destroying self-limitations and helping you achieve your dreams. Sitting next to me, if you guys are watching today's episode, is my good friend Dallan Jones. I've worked with Dallan for the past 2 years now, and Dallan is an excellent leader. And what we're going to be focusing on in today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast is how good leaders can up their game and not just be good leaders anymore, but be excellent leaders. And the reason they can be excellent is because of one simple principle, and that's leading from the front. So in today's episode, Dallan's going to describe all about his leadership style and how we can lead from the front in our own lives and help others do the exact same. So guys, with all that being said, let's jump into today's episode. So Dallan, thank you so much for hopping on today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast with me, man.
No problem, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I've a little background. I've known Dallan for about 2.5-ish years now. Right after I finished my LDS mission, I came over here to college, and one of my buddies, one of my close friends, was also friends with Dallan, and he linked us together. I was looking for a job at the time, and kind of the rest is history. And ever since then, I've been able to connect with Dallan. If you guys listen back on the episode we did with Brandon Dallan about how he completed his Murph challenge for an entire year, set a world record. Brandon works with us, and we've met some amazing people. We've learned together. We've definitely gone through the trenches in some ways, but overall it's been a great time. But Dallan, when I first started working here at Hawks, it was he was one of my first managers who I started working with, and he's one of the first people I kind of got to see doing this principle we're going to be discussing today of leading from the front. But before we jump full force, just so you guys can get to know Dallan a little bit, maybe you can tell them where you're from, a little bit about yourself, what makes you tick.
Yeah, so I was born in Wyoming. I grew up in Arizona and Gilbert. I served a mission as well in Spain. I was there from 2016 to 2018. When I got back, I went to BYU, and my plan was medicine, so I was a biology major at BYU. And my first year there, I actually had someone shoulder tap me on campus and say, hey, come try doing sales. And so I ended up spending a summer doing sales for a pest control company, and then I went and ended up managing some other teams. And it was my third year that I met Brandon. He came out with us to Nashville, and now that's what I do. I do sales, I lead teams, and I also own a custom auto body shop in American Fork, Utah here. And then I just invest in other ways. I love the idea of doing different jobs my whole life.
Yeah. And Dallan's a great leader. Like I said, I've had him personally as my manager, but he also is always gung-ho about helping other people get their priorities set straight and helping them with their ventures. As I've been doing this podcast for a while, Dallan always checks in with me on how that's going. And I just know he's always looking towards other people and saying, hey, how can I help you in X, Y, or Z, whatever they're working on. So just throwing a little plug, you want to mention your auto body shop for anyone here in Utah? If you guys need anything done, this is your guy right here.
Yeah, so it's called Zeal Customs. We're up in American Fork. We're opening Arizona right now. We've got over 100 reviews. None of them are anything but 5-star reviews. So we do wraps, chrome deletes, tints, details, whatever you want to make your car look cool. We'll do it for you. We'll do it at a fair price.
Yeah. So if you guys need any wraps done, this is your guy right here. But jumping back, so that's a little bit about Dallan and his story. Obviously, the main focus of today's episode is going to be about leading from the front, right? It's how you became manager to begin with, and you kind of set forth on your leadership path, and then how you were able to not only just be this manager, because I think manager sometimes can be a very negative term.
Yeah.
If you picture I'm sure anyone's worked a job in their life where all the employees behind the scenes always talk crap on their managers. They don't want anything to do with them. But you've kind of switched that role of being manager, but also implemented. We're still going to get the work done. I'm still going to be kind of strict and stern with you, but we could still be friends at the same time.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that kind of stuff?
Well, I guess like the way that kind of developed, because I am very much that way. I don't enjoy working with anybody that I'm not friends with. And I kind of have the same perspective that if somebody's trying to work with me, even if I'm kind of in a boss or a manager role, like I'm never going to be able to actually help them unless they enjoy me as a person. And that kind of started my first year of managing One of my buddies, I got him over from another pest control company to come work with me, and then he recruited like 10 guys, and so I was kind of like out of my element. I didn't know, I didn't feel like I was adequate to be managing. I'd only done like 180 accounts the year before as a rookie, and so my aim was to just help my guys feel like they had a brother and help them feel like they had a support and like someone who was just trying to do his best to get them to do well. And as a result, it kind of just carried along into my other years of managing, where that was always a part of it. Was I was always trying my best to lead from the front, to sell as many as accounts as I could, but more than that, I was trying to meet people where they were, like on common ground, and then build with them on an individual basis.
And that's something I've noticed a ton from your managerial status. It's not always talking strictly business, but it's also focusing on, like I mentioned a minute ago, helping other people grow in other aspects. And granted, this job's a little different because the majority of it focuses during the summer when the bugs are out, right?
Yeah.
But in your case, you still have a million things going on throughout the remainder of the year when we're not actually working full force in those 4 months. So how do you kind of keep up with everyone, make sure they're doing good, and make sure you're doing it in a way that it's not simply, oh, just because of work, I'm going to have to reach out to you, but no, I want to care about you. I want to actually show you that I'm invested.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with just creating the relationship. So each relationship that I have is different. There's dudes who, like this last year, at this point, like I am super confident in my ability. Like I don't have that same inadequacy feeling that I had my first year of managing, but still, like I have guys who, like every time they see me, they're like, "Mr. Bones, like what up, man?" Like they talk to me in like this weird voice, and I meet them there. I give them the same voice back, and like I enjoy them. I really enjoy their energy, and I reciprocate what they're giving to me. And as a result, they really trust me. They ask me questions. They come to me when they want to start businesses, um, and it's because I genuinely do just try to like
Care about them.
yeah I try to care about them and like just meet them where they're at.
And going more focused on the topic of actually leading from the front, I feel like sometimes when you get into a position of so-called power, if you're a manager, if you're a leader of some team, of some company, you get it in your head that I'm set in this spot now. I'm going to let the worker bees kind of do their thing, and I'm just going to manage, right?
Yeah.
That's the term of the manager, right?
Yep.
They do their job, and I manage over their job. But you don't necessarily take it that step, or that approach, I guess I should say. You get in the trenches with them. You actually show them how it's done.
Yeah, and honestly, like that goes back to, once again, it's the philosophy of, I think that's how you can help them. Like if you're working on a team, and especially a sales team, where the leader is not performing, I don't think that the worker bees are going to perform either. And so I think that the best thing that a manager can do is not spend time calling them, not spend time like doing random crap, like
holding their hand,
like just like there's so much crap that you can say, oh, I was doing this all day and that's why it didn't work. If you can completely just take those excuses out, and then during a work day just work and outperform everybody on your team, as a result, I have seen that their production just about doubles. So it's kind of like a selfish thing, and it's an unselfish thing to, because I mean, everybody loves making sales, and as a manager, like that shouldn't go away. But at the same time, it's like if you're doing that, I think it's the 20-80 rule. Like they're going to do 20% of what you do on average. Yeah. And so if you can get your production really high, then that 20% is still going to be significant.
And it's true, because you go through these times, and once again, we're talking specifically about the sales industry, but put it into any other plug, HR, resources, global supply chain, whatever it may be, whatever industry. If you see the person who's supposedly your boss, the one you're supposed to look up to, the one who got the promotion, the one that the higher ups trust, right? You see them pumping iron if they're going full force into whatever project you're working on, it's going to be kind of that natural cause and effect.
Yeah, it creates this culture, and it's like, it's contagious, where if they see this dude like enjoying his job and like working as hard as he can, and that's what their example is, they're going to imitate that. And yes, it's not just sales where that's the case. Like even in my auto body shop, like I try to pop in when I can, and I've got 3 really good partners who do the same. And all of us make an effort to show up for our guys, to let them, like, we mess around with them at some points, but we also let them see like what we're doing. We let them see the vision. We let them kind of have a piece and feel like they're part of it, because they are.
Yeah. And that's the whole point of the team, though, right? You
Yeah.
have to. I don't know. I feel like I've just worked with some managers in the past where they sit in their chair and they say, go get to work, and then they do their own thing, and you don't feel like you're part of any team.
Mm-hmm.
But you're taking literally the exact opposite approach, and you're saying, no, I'm not just the head of the team or the captain of the team, but I'm part of it. I'm just the same as you guys in the long
Yeah,
run.
like I'm a member of the team that, I mean, like, if we're a basketball team, everybody's going to be scoring 10 points and I'm going to score 30. That should be the goal. Like, and I guess tennis isn't the best one to kind of give an example for, because that's taking the ball away from others.
Right.
But I guess it's more like a tennis team, like where you have different, like you have the number 1, the number 2, 3, 4, 5, and everybody is going against their individual matchup.
But you're still working together, right?
Yes, and you should be number 1. You should be like the guy who everybody is there. Like, when you're scrimmaging, they're trying to return your serves. But at the end of the day, you're still part of a team, and you're their biggest cheerleader when they're playing.
Definitely. And let's talk about that for a second as well. Being able to recognize when the workers, when the people you're leading over actually do something great. How do you handle a situation like that? How do you kind of praise them, reward them? What do you do?
Honestly, I'll normally, like, because I like having the relationships that I have, I'll probably call them and I'll make fun of them. I'm like, bro, you only sold 10? Like, what the heck, man? Like, and then I try to pump them up, because I think a lot of life is this. And if you can help someone just be this, not down here, but like up here
On the higher
in the
flights.
higher ones, not in necessarily their peak, but like around here, then really you can have a huge impact on their life. And so actually, I'll call them and I'll be like, hey man, like, bro, you only sold 9. Like, no, dude, I'm just kidding. Like, that's amazing, man. I'm super proud of you. Like, don't ride this high. Tomorrow, I promise you, you're gonna get out there. It's gonna be a normal day, and after every high day, there's always a trough that comes. Do not let yourself hit the trough. I know you hit 9 today, but your daily goal every day is 2. So go for 2 again. Don't let yourself go for 7 just because you hit 9 one day.
Definitely.
And as you do, let's say that your goal is 2 every day. If you can do 3 a day for 1 week, then you get to up your goal. But until then, it's 2. And once you hit 3 for 1 week, guess what? You can move up to 4 is your next goal if you hit 4 in a week. But don't ever ride those highs. Don't let yourself get in the lows, because they always follow the highs. Stay here, wherever your goal is.
No, I want to take a step back from the whole sales and managing part of this episode and focus a little bit about where you came from and kind of how it shaped you into becoming a great leader. And I want everyone to pay specific attention to this portion of the episode, because this is kind of the framework that you should be taking forward if you want to up your leadership game, if you want to start leading from the front. And so, Dallan, you had kind of an interesting upbringing, right? You have a lot of siblings, and you had a couple crazy events happen in your life with your family and some of your closest friends.
Yeah.
So, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of 9 kids. I'm an identical twin. And so my dad passed away when I was really little. And so I didn't grow up with a father. I had 2 stepdads who were around for a little bit, but I did have really good examples in brothers. And so I attribute a lot of like my success to them in a lot of ways. I always say I have a brother for everything. I have a brother for like spiritual things, for music, for relationships. Like, there's really good resources out there for me. But I also saw a lot of what I didn't like in them. So I see good and bad examples. But yeah, I feel like I was shaped in large part by them, and by a mom who is a really good mom, who didn't baby me, and she had me and my twin brother, like, paying for our own stuff for a long time. And so I think that kind of created like a provider instinct in me that I think is huge to me. But I do know that, like, the adversities that I've felt in my life, my mom always says there's 2 ways that you can handle adversity. You can either cry about it and like be bitter, or you can really like just grow, and you can try to find the positive and make the best of it. And I do feel like they were somewhat formative in that way, that like it's created more of a fight than a flight response in me, to where when something happens, like I want to like win.
Yeah.
I want to like compete, and I want to, despite everything, it's almost like, okay, like it's creating this story that's like making it more interesting for me. And it's just another variable that adds, that like should slow me down. But in reality,
it's going to boost you up. It's
Yeah.
going to give you the motivation.
yeah, like if you use it as fuel, then it's a positive, like for your personal life.
And I really hope everyone listening today honed in on what Dallan just said. I've had people, to get a little open here on the podcast, I've had people email me before, and they say, everything you've talked about, or whoever I was interviewing at the time, sounds great, but it sounds like they're coming from a place way above where I'm even starting from, right? And so I wanted you to highlight, not in a negative aspect or anything like that, but listen to what Dallan just said. He grew up, and sadly you lost your father when you were really young, but you chose to, rather than just say, crap, well, I'm screwed, I don't have a father figure, and now I'm going to go off the rails and do my own thing and go crazy in life.
Yeah.
And you said, okay, that situation happened, which is awful, but it happened. So I'm going to turn, and usually father figures are our biggest mentors as guys when we're younger, right? And you said, rather than letting that one go, I'm going to focus on, I have these amazing brothers who are going to be my mentors. Or maybe for those people who have emailed me in the past, maybe it's not a brother or father specifically, but maybe it's a close friend. Maybe it's somebody who went to your local church congregation. Maybe it's a teacher when you're in elementary school or high school or something like that. There's always going to be somebody you can kind of wrap your arms around, and they can kind of lead you in some ways.
Yeah. And I just want to kind of add on to that. Like I work with a lot of guys who are from different backgrounds as well. And
Definitely.
Yeah, like I really think that it's powerful to surround yourself by winners, like in general. I'm blessed to have winners in family. Like my brothers are winners. And so they're like a built-in support system that's been really helpful for me. But I mean, if you're wherever you're at, like there's always people around you who are looking to make better choices. And it's always better to sometimes kind of cut the fat and leave people behind who aren't going to help you hit your goals, or if they have a victim mentality, or if they're not kind of like out for blood.
Yeah. No, in a way, that's a funny way of putting it, but it's so true. Because how many times in our life do we have that friend? Maybe they've been our friend since we were really little, and so you keep them around simply because you want to be nice to them, or simply because like you've been friends for so long. But they're not a great impact for you. They're always letting you down. They're always treating you wrong. They're always leading you down a path you shouldn't be going on. They don't support your goals. How do you deal with somebody like that?
No, I love that. And so the way that you deal with them is you spend less time with them, straight up. Like, and it's the same thing with management. Like you need to spend time with the guys that are high performers. Like it always seems like you always naturally, like people who are good people, they want to help the very bottom guy.
You want to help build them up.
Yes, right? The guy who's like performing the least. But in reality, like if they're hitting their peak, then a lot of times they're not going to be like the ROI on your time isn't going to be as much. And you always need to think of that. And so in your relationships as well, if there's someone who you're like, man, like I love this guy so much, like he's helping it, like he's an important part of my life, but he's slowing me down. He's a bad influence. He's the reason that I'm not doing this. Like you gotta cut it, and you don't cut him from your life, but you decide, okay, hey, this guy is not worth 8 hours of my time, like per week or whatever it is. Like maybe I can just call him every once in a while, and I need to find new friends.
Yeah.
Or if you're a manager, like, man, this kid he's amazing. I love him. He's like, he says all the right things, but then he doesn't perform. Okay, time to cut the fat. Call him once a week. Spend the time with the guys who are gonna really actually apply what you're teaching and give you a return on your time.
Yeah, and I feel like that's an important principle. Once again, aside from all the managerial stuff we've been talking about, look into your guys' personal lives. I know I've been going through that process over the past couple of years. When I first got off my LDS mission, I had all my friends back in high school, and then when I got to Utah to go to college, I kind of had a fresh start. I had some friends from back home who ended up here in the same location, but in a lot of ways it was going to be a whole new group. And at first that really scared me because, like anyone, you're going through a situation where there's a lot of change. You don't know how it's going to look. I was walking into Utah with not knowing a ton of people. I had family out here, but like close friends who I'd be going to school with and kind of doing the day-to-day with. I was nervous at first. But then as time started rolling on, and as I look back now, having been here for 2.5 years, I am so incredibly grateful for that opportunity where I was able to switch from just kind of the same old from back where I came from. I get out of my hometown, I move over here to Utah, and I meet these amazing people, people who have changed my life. But also I've met, in the same aspect, I've met those people who aren't always going to support my goals. They don't think you're going to amount to anything. They're just not always going to be the best influence. And so it's been a kind of fun journey for me trying to get through that and seeing, okay, who, this is a bad way of putting it, but who am I keeping, who am I not, right?
Well, yeah, and I know you're not the one to be interviewed, but I've seen that happen. Like that's actually kind of a cool thing. Like your group is amazing. Like all of your good friends are winners, and that's been super cool to see actually for me. When I think of like a good group, that's one of the first ones I think of.
Thank you, God.
It's
been fun. But Dallan, kind of closing out, we've talked about leading from the front. We've talked about strong managerial principles. We've talked about how you can kind of be that example for other people, even despite the hardships you may have faced at whatever point in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Now to kind of close out, one very, very tough spot that every manager or every leader goes through is when you have somebody who is kind of defying you a little bit. Because at the end of the day, if you're leading, if you're managing for a job, you still have to set the precedent. There's still going to be rules. There's still going to be kind of principles set in place that everyone has to adhere to. It's a job at the end of the day. So how do you deal with those people that are backlashing it a little bit, who aren't necessarily following the rules, who kind of are pushing everyone else's opinion to the side and saying, I'm going to do me?
I would say two things. Number one, as a manager, you can have no fear. Or like even as a leader in general, like if you are fearful of anything, and I'm even talking basketball. Like I was pretty good at basketball, but there were so many people who were better than me growing up. And like I was afraid a lot. And as a result, like we would lose. Like the whole team sometimes was kind of just wimpy. But in competitions like sales, like this last year, we ended up winning the cup, which is like a huge achievement. And it was because we had zero fear whatsoever. Like we were like, okay, we're going to work as hard as we possibly can. We're going to do our absolute best. And like, if they beat us at that, then great. What?
Props to them, right?
Yeah, like they deserve it. But it's the same thing with someone who's kind of like being a bum on your team. Like if they're defying you, if they're a toxic person, if they're cancerous, if they're complaining, like cut it immediately. And I think that your guys' team this year was a really good example of that, and that you guys cut like half the team, which is awesome. And so as soon as there is a cancer, do not be afraid to hurt their opinion or hurt their feelings. Like think about the greater good, which is the team or the family that you're part of. Cut them out and roll with the guys, like I said before, that are going to really put the time in and be worth it for you.
Definitely. And guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. If you guys ever want to get in contact with me or Dallan, I'm going to link both of our information down in the description below. Just as some final fun facts for you guys to enjoy. Dallan, you also went to the same high school as Brock Purdy, right?
Yes, I did.
So I don't know. That's just a fun little fact.
Yeah.
So if you guys are 49ers fans, I hope you especially enjoyed today's episode. But it would mean the world to me if you guys left a positive review. That's how I continue to grow the show. Or if you heard anything that could potentially benefit one of your friends, family members, cousins, grandparents, or anyone else in your life, make sure to share this episode with them so they can enjoy it just the same. And guys, at the end of the day, just remember, it'll all be okay. Just take a step back and start leading from the front.